Hello, Endeavour. We are nearly there, right at the end of our story of Boom. And we'll be doing it for chapter 17, Individual Broccoli Tartlets. We ran out of petrol halfway, having used the backup supply to destroy the weft beam. But there were oars and it was a sunny day, and just being on the surface of our own planet was a pleasure. I tried to explain everything to Becky, but after a while she told me to stop. It's doing my head in, Jimbo. I'm tired and hungry and filthy. I've been living in the wilderness for nearly a week, eating strange people under the head. I need normality. I need ordinary. I need bacon and eggs and toast. I need a long hot shower, and I do not need hover scooters and intergalactic ferries. So she went and sat at the bow, and Charlie sat facing me while we rowed and shared our stories about being captured and how Becky and I had set off in pursuit of us on a stolen motorbike. And maybe Bob with the Hawaiian shirt was right. Maybe it was cool being on a planet on the far side of a known galaxy. And maybe it was even cooler escaping and getting home again. But the coolest thing of all was having my friend back. What about Mrs. Pierce? I asked. What do you mean? Asked Charlie. She said she was going to make us suffer. You don't think she's going to, do you? You know, like track us down. Charlie put his head on one side and stared at me. She's an elderly lady with no job. The police will be looking for her. She has a tail and no belly button. If I were her, I'd be heading for the hills and living off nuts and berries. We took turns rowing, and after a couple of hours we reached Elgol Harbour, with two seagulls circling above us and a friendly seal in our wake. The red Volvo was parked a little way up the road from the slipway. So, said Charlie, rubbing his hands together, are we going to break in and hotwire it? Don't be daft, said Becky. I had the driver tied up for 3 days. And she fished a set of keys out of her holdall. These were in his pocket. You're a true professional, said Charlie. Thank you, said Becky. Can I have a go at driving, said Charlie. Are you out of your mind, said Becky. Get in the back. The Volvo was pretty straightforward after the Motor Guzzi. It had 4 wheels for starters, so it wasn't going to fall over sideways. We scraped a couple of stone walls and bumped in and out of a few ditches over the first couple of miles, but Becky soon got the hang of it. The journey was glorious. All those things I'd never looked at before seemed wonderful now. Cooling towers, transit vans, concrete bridges. I looked at electricity pylons and felt a warm glow in my heart. After 3 hours, we stopped at Gretna Green. Becky ordered her fry-up, I ordered a pizza, and Charlie ordered a black coffee and 4 apple turnovers. We had another 6 hours of driving in which to plan our stories, but we were too tired. After about 4 minutes, Charlie and I fell asleep and didn't wake up till we reached the M25. Luckily, Becky only fell asleep twice, but each time she was woken up by a lorry honking as she veered into the wrong lane on the motorway. We offered to drop Charlie off first, but he reckoned our parents were less likely to kill him. When we pulled into the car park by the flats, I looked up at the tatty, peeling, weather-stained block, and I must admit I got a bit tearful. Then I remembered the complications waiting upstairs and my heart sank. I turned to Becky. What are we going to say? We, said Becky. I think that's your job, mate. But if you want my advice, I'd go easy with the aliens with the hairy tails and space travel aspect of the whole thing. Gird your loins, said Charlie. Let's get this over with. Becky unlocked the door of the flat, and as we stepped inside, Mum was on the phone. She dropped and froze for a few seconds, and she screamed. It was actually quite frightening. She threw her arms around me and Becky and squeezed and cried and shouted, You're alive! You're alive! And Dad came into the hallway and did the same thing, without screaming. Then everyone noticed that Charlie was standing to one side, looking a bit left out, so we grabbed hold of him and gave him a group hug, by which time we were all crying, even Charlie, and I'd never seen him cry before. Things calmed down after a few minutes and we stopped hugging each other. Mum's face went dark and said, Where have you been? And this was the point when I realised we should have worked our story out. Well, there was a horrible silence. You disappear for a week, said Mum, her joy ebbing rapidly away. You don't tell us where you're going. We call you and you don't ring us back. We've been through hell wondering what's happened to you. Then Charlie had a brainwave, and I have to say that it was both simple and rather brilliant. We were kidnapped. Dad? Kidnapped, said Mum. By Mr. Kidd, said Charlie, and Mrs. Pierce from school. They took us to Scotland, I said, to Loch Porruisk, on the Isle of Skye. What? Said Mum. What? She sounded a bit like a chicken. So, said Dad, shaking his head, who wrecked the flat? What? Asked Charlie. I looked over Dad's shoulders and saw 2 halves of a snapped coffee table stacked in the corner of the living room, and it all came back to me. Oh, that, I said. We came home, said Dad. The fridge was on one side, the sofa was upside down, and we found one of our kitchen chairs in the car park. Obviously, we didn't want to be kidnapped, said Becky, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world, so we put up a fight. But, but, said Mum, sounding like a slightly different version of a chicken. Why did they kidnap you? I've no idea, said Charlie breezily. You'll have to ask Mrs. Pierce and Mr. Kidd. Perhaps they can explain everything. I'm going to ring the police, said Dad. Excellent idea, said Charlie, but I really do think I ought to go home first. Becky and I showered rapidly and grabbed some clean clothes, and Dad drove us over to Charlie's house. We knocked on the door, and it was pretty much a repeat of what happened at our house. The hugging, the crying, except Mrs. Brooks screamed a lot louder than Mum. Dr. Brooks rang the police, and 2 sergeants arrived 10 minutes later. Reassuringly, neither of them were wearing brass bands. We told them the kidnap story, like Becky suggested. We missed out the aliens with hairy tails and the space travel aspect, and the stealing a motorbike and a car without a driving licence aspect, and the driving the Earth and saving the Earth from destruction aspect. The police asked us whether we wanted counselling. We said we'd prefer a hot tea. They told us that we'd be in touch and headed out to their car. Charlie and Becky and I then wandered into the kitchen to discover that Dad and Mrs. Brooks had formed a team. Mrs. Brooks was rustling up a Stilton sauce to pour over steamed vegetables, while Dad was putting together some individual broccoli tartlets. Mrs. Brooks was really rather impressed. Indeed, while we were eating supper, she said that if he was looking for work, she often needed help with some of her bigger catering jobs. Dad said he was very flattered, but he'd have to go away and think about it. Over a dessert of pears in chocolate custard, Mum asked Becky whether she was going to ring Craterface, except she called him Terry because she was in a good mood because we weren't dead. And Becky said she'd be happy if she never saw that lying skunk again, which was probably just as well since we left his motor guzzy in Scotland. There was a loud pop, and Dr. Brooks appeared carrying champagne and a tray of glasses. He filled them and we raised them. Dad said, "Welcome home," and Charlie sank into his glass in one go and let out one of the loudest burps I've ever heard in my life. Well, Endeavour, we're on chapter 18, A Bunker Under the Brecon Beacons. What's going on? I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.